Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hope your day and your week have been going very well so far. Got a new day, which of course means a new MLB Player Prop video to share with you guys. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. With a new day comes some new opportunities to go ahead and make some money. I have five MLB player props to go ahead and share with you guys in today's MLB slate, including a couple of nice plus money plays, some pretty good value across the board in today's pick. But first, before we dive into today's picks, a quick little recap of how we did yesterday. And now look, guys, it wasn't a massive victory, but it's our first positive winning day we've had in like 2 weeks. So we're going to take the victories where we can find them. Now, JT Realmuto did get voided because he did not play in the lineup last night. So we had 3 player props graded. We went 2-1. Jake Irvin under 5.5 hits allowed, and Logan Gilbert over 6.5 strikeouts, which by the way was a plus money play. We did cash both those. Aaron Judge over 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. He did have 1 hit, and then the Angels intentionally walked him. His 4th and 5th at bat. Kind of a pussy move. Sorry for cussing. Pussy move, if you ask me. But yeah, solid win. We won 0.68 units in yesterday's video. So again, small victory, but with the way we've been betting the last couple weeks, getting a win here is a massive step in the right direction and a solid start to this week. So let's build on that in today's picks. Like I said, we have 5 MLB player props in today's video with a couple of nice plus money plays. So let's build on a solid start to the week and keep on going here. Let's dive right into today's picks. Jumping right into the outlier screen, guys. Our first player prop in today's slate is our first big plus money play of today's video. We have Phillies Marlins, 6:10 p.m. first pitch. We're going Dane Myers of the Miami Marlins over 1.5 total bases. We're grabbing that for plus 170 over on FanDuel. So big money odds here on this Dane Myers player prop. And I'll be totally honest, the overall data is not good at all, but the recent data is pretty solid. You see 6 of his last 10 games, he's cashed the over, averaging 2 total bases per game over his last 10 games. If we do go ahead and narrow the data down a little further to the last 5 games, you see 3 of his last 5, 60% hit rate, averaging 2.4 total bases per game over his last 5 games. So the recent data is actually pretty decent here, but it's the further you stretch the numbers out, the less impressive it gets. Overall, this year, just a 40% hit rate on this over for Dane Myers. 17 out of 43 games he's cashed the over, averaging just 1.44 total bases per game this year. And you do see a lot of red when looking at the data range. Now, the head-to-head data also reads pretty poorly. However, if we do narrow it down a little bit, he's actually cashed the over in 3 of his last 4 matchups with the Phillies, including 2 out of 3 so far this year. So the overall, just 3 of his last 8, it looks bad. But if you actually narrow it down a little bit, just to, let's say, this year's numbers, 2 out of the 3 matchups so far this year, he's cashed the over with 1 big game back on April 19th. He had 5 total bases. On 420, he had 2. And then yesterday, he had 0. But he's definitely having more success this year than he did last year. So, Tasso, why do you like this player prop? Well, it all comes down to the key matchup stats here. And it's a really phenomenal matchup from a data standpoint. Now, Myers versus Jesus Luzardo, only 3 plate appearances since 2018. Not a ton to go off of there. Small sample size. But he does have a hit off of him. It was only a single, but it was a hit regardless. Again, kind of too small of a sample size to really go off of. But looking at the splits down below here, Dane Myers having a fantastic year for the Marlins. All of his numbers very solid, but they actually all increase when facing off with left-handed pitchers like Jesus Luzardo. 413 batting average, massive jump. 459 BIP, very big jump. ISO, extra base hit percentage, all very phenomenal increases in those numbers. And looking at Jesus Luzardo, the picture remains the same for him versus right-handed batters. All of his numbers, which by the way are not very good to begin with, all increase when facing off with right-handed batters like Dane Myers. 5.28 ERA, 3.04 batting average, 4.47 slugging. The only one that has a minor increase is the extra base hit percentage. It goes up from 30.2 to 30.6, but it's a really phenomenal matchup here across the board. For plus 170, I'm willing to go ahead and take the chance here on this player prop. And jumping on over to the MLB dashboard, we can go ahead and see that it's still a pretty favorable matchup if we dive a little bit deeper into the data. Looking at the bullpen numbers too. Let's say that Jesus Luzardo comes out. Still, look at the Phillies bullpen ERA. 23rd Major League Baseball this year. They're whipped, bottom 10 in the league. You know, pretty good numbers, even if when he comes out with a bullpen, it's a pretty good matchup across the board. Again, looking at Jesus Luzardo versus left-handed hitters and right-handed hitters. Now, versus lefties, it's actually very good this year, but versus righties, where a lot of that bad data comes in, that's obviously really good for us. You see that 304 batting average allowed, 162 whip. Pretty good numbers across the board here. And then looking over at the Dane Myers side of things. Again, Dane Myers average versus left-handed pitchers just the last 30 games. Just the last 30 games, he's batting .467 against left-handed pitchers with a 1.329 OPS. Really phenomenal numbers across the board for plus 170. It's definitely a player prop worth tailing. All right, guys, our second player prop in today's video, we're actually going to stick with the same Marlins-Phillies game. We're running back a player prop that got voided last night because he did not play. We're going JT Realmuto of the Phillies over 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. We're grabbing it for minus 145 over on DraftKings, but it is available on multiple sports books for varying odds. And we did talk about this player prop yesterday, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it because everything I spoke about in yesterday's video still very much relevant into today's video. But 60% hit rate over his last 10 games, averaging 2.3 hits, runs, RBIs per game over the last 10. Overall this year, a 46% hit rate on this over. Not great from an overall standpoint, but the recent data is good enough to justify taking the player prop. And even from an overall standpoint, he is averaging 1.76 hits, runs, RBIs per game this year, which isn't too bad. The big thing here is from the head-to-head standpoint, 7 of his last 8 matchups with the Marlins, he's cashed the over. It's an 88% hit rate against Miami, averaging 2.88 hits, runs, RBIs per game across the last 8 matchups with Miami, including so far this year, 2-0. Small sample size from this year, I understand, but he's got a pretty good track record against Miami over the last year and a half. Looking down below at the key matchup stats, JT Realmuto versus Cal Quantrill. 10 plate appearances since 2018. Doesn't have a very good track record against him, I'll be honest, just 2 hits against him in 10 plate appearances, but based off the matchup stats down below, it seems to be a pretty solid matchup. JT Realmuto having an okay year, but versus right-handed pitchers, those numbers increased dramatically. 291 batting average versus right-handed pitchers, 133.6 WRC plus. Cal Quantrill, I suck at name pronunciations. I apologize to Cal, but his numbers not very good, and they get even worse versus right-handed batters like JT Realmuto. 8.48 ERA is impressively bad. 383 batting average, 1.9 home runs per 9, 456 WOBA. It seems like a really good matchup for JT Realmuto here. I think it's a really solid player prop. All right, guys, our third player prop in today's video, kind of running back something I took yesterday, but not exactly. We have Angels-Yankees, 7:05 p.m. first pitch. We're going Aaron Judge of the Yankees over 1.5 total bases. We're grabbing it for minus 130 over on DraftKings, but again, available on multiple sports books for varying odds. And I'll be honest, unlike the last 2 player props, the recent data is not very good. The overall data is actually pretty solid. You see just 5 of his last 10 games, Judge has cashed the over, including in 3 consecutive games. He's failed to cash the over, averaging just 2.7 total bases per game over the last 10 games. He obviously had that one big game versus Boston back on June 8th where he had 9 total bases. Definitely helped that average go up a little bit. But yeah, last 5 games is a 20% hit rate. Last 20 games is a 50% hit rate. However, if you do go ahead and stretch the data out to the entire season view for Judge, a 63% hit rate on the over. 45 out of 71 games he's cashed the over, averaging 2.8 total bases per game this year. So, like I said, from a recent standpoint, the data is not fantastic, but from an overall standpoint, it really isn't that bad. Now, being fully transparent, the head-to-head data is actually even weaker than all the other data. Just 2 of his last 10 matchups versus the Angels, he's cashed the over, averaging 1.1 total bases per game over the last 10 matches, including 0-4 this year against the Angels. Now, he's recorded a hit in 3 of the 4 games. He just hasn't gotten any extra base hits in any of those matchups, or multi-hit games for that matter. Like I said, the data is not very strong on this player prop, guys, but why I like it is right here. The matchup, head-to-head matchups versus Kyle Hendricks. Aaron Judge this year batting .378. We know all of his numbers are very good. Versus right-handed pitchers, it's essentially the same thing. His batting average increases by 0.001. BABIP, a little increase there. Some of his numbers drop a little bit, but overall, the data on his side is obviously very fine. The key thing is Kyle Hendricks here. 7.03 ERA, 318 batting average, 581 slugging when facing off with right-handed batters, all pretty solid increases from his overall data. The extra base hit percentages drop a little bit down to 41.5, but still, Judge having a 41% versus righties and Kyle Hendricks having a 41.5% versus righties. That's a pretty good matchup there and a pretty good recipe for a cash. And looking at Aaron Judge versus Kyle Hendricks' pitch arsenal here. Now, overall, Aaron Judge, 507 WOBA, obviously very elite. Versus the changeup, which he uses 37.3% of his pitches, he's got 471. It is a decrease from his 507 mark, but 471 WOBA is still really, really good. And then his second most utilized pitch, the sinker, he actually has a 636 WOBA. So really solid matchup here for Aaron Judge versus the Angels and Kyle Hendricks. And again, referring to the MLB dashboard here over on GuyBostonSports.com. By the way, if you guys want access to this dashboard, just go to GuyBostonSports.com, go over to the members tab and sign up For the MLB dashboard, it's $4.99 a month throughout the MLB season. Really not that bad considering you get all this information and more access. If you do the premium member, which is like all, you get the NBA dashboard, the MLB dashboard, it's $6.99 a month. But pretty affordable, honestly, and you get a lot of good information. And these update daily, so you get all the update information. And Ev is constantly adding new things and upgrading it and putting new things. So really consider taking advantage of this. It's going to help you become a better sports bettor for sure. But last 30 games, Aaron Judge versus right-handed pitchers, 350 batting average, really good, and his OPS 1.251. So really phenomenal numbers here for Judge in those categories there. And if we go back over here, just look at the bullpen situation for the Angels, because it does matter, of course, when Hendricks does exit the game. Does Judge still have a chance here? And the answer is yes, because the Angels bullpen, they're in bottom 5 in all 3 categories: ERA, WHIP, and strikeouts per walk ratio. So really solid matchup across the board here for our third player prop in today's video. By the way, guys, we just hit the 11-minute mark in today's video. So if you are still watching at this point, please comment 11 down below in the comment section. As always, guys, we appreciate those who watch through each and every single video here on the channel. Myself, Evan, Trey, we put a lot of hard work into each and every video. So when you do watch all the way through, it means a ton to us. So please comment 11 down below if you're still watching. And thank you very much for being a supporter of all of us here at Guy Boston Sports. All right, guys, our fourth player prop in today's video. This was the other big plus money play I kind of teased in the beginning of the video. We have Red Sox Mariners, 9:40 p.m. first pitch. We got Abraham Toro of the Red Sox over 1.5 total bases, plus 150 over on DraftKings. And no, just because I'm betting Red Sox props does not mean I forgive them. I'm still very mad with the organization, and I still am sticking to my word. I'm not buying any more Red Sox stuff until John Henry sells the team. I am considering canceling my season tickets and all those things. I'm disappointed. I know some stuff has come out about Devers over the last 24 hours that do paint a worse picture for him, and kind of makes a little bit more sense why Boston rushed to get him out. That being said, though, you still traded another generational superstar in the midst of his prime for a bag of potato chips. So that still stands. I understand wanting to move on from him. That point has become more clear, but still, you could have made a better trade than what you did. So it is what it is. But Abraham Toro over 1.5 total bases, plus 150 over on DraftKings. And I'll be honest, besides the last 10 game data, there's not a lot of good data to go off of here from a trend standpoint, right? 60% hit rate over his last 10 games, averaging 2.4 total bases per game over the last 10 games. Overall this year, a 47% hit rate on the over, 14 out of 30 games. He's cashed the over, averaging 1.87 total bases per game this year. Not terrible, but not good either. And from a head-to-head perspective, just 3 of his last 7 matchups versus the Mariners, he's cashed the over. They played once this year, last night, and he had 1 total base, but that obviously isn't enough to cash the over. But where this player prop gets made for me is in the key matchup stats down below. Abraham Toro versus Bryan Woo, the pitcher of the Mariners. 5 plate appearances since 2018. Kind of a small sample size, but it's still something to go off of. He has 2 hits and 3 total bases, including 1 extra base hit, of course, and 5 plate appearances against Bryan Woo. So not really enough to go off of there, but it's still something to look at. Gives us some frame of reference for this matchup head-to-head. Now, Abraham Toro is a switch hitter, but he is primarily probably going to utilize the left-handed bat in this matchup. But Toro this year versus right-handed, he's having a solid year overall for the Red Sox, but versus right-handed pitchers in particular, 333 batting average, 344 BIP, 282 ISO, and 46.2% extra base hit percentage, all increases from his overall numbers. And looking at Bryan Woo, all of his numbers increase when facing off with left-handed batters like Toro, in this case, a switch hitter. He's probably going to buy lefty here. But all of his numbers increased, 237 batting average, 428 ERA, 441 slugging. This one right here is the key thing, though. 41.7% extra base hit percentage allowed. That 46.2 versus that 41.7, to me, equals a very good chance of at least an extra base hit. So he may not need to have a multi-hit game. He could hit a double, a home run, a triple, something of that extra base hit nature could happen here in this matchup. And looking at Abraham Toro versus Bryan Woo's pitch arsenal. Now, overall, Abraham Toro this year, 380 WOBA, very solid. Bryan Woo very, very heavily utilizes the fastball here, 42.6% fastball usage this year. You see Abraham Toro, 419 WOBA, so his numbers actually increase when facing off with a fastball, which obviously is really good. His second most utilized pitch, the sinker, 26.5% of his pitches are sinkers this year. 645 WOBA. Now, granted, very limited sample size in comparison to fastballs, but still having a lot of success versus those 2 pitches. His third most utilized pitch, the slider, 22.1% of his pitches. That's the one where his numbers do dip quite a bit. But again, if you look at the pie here, most of it is eaten up by fastball and sinker, where he's having a ton of success against. And referring back to the dashboard, Seattle's bullpen, they are middle of the road, 15th in ERA, 21st in whip, 12th in strikeout per walk ratio. So, if he comes out, when Brian Wu comes out of the game, it's not going to be the best matchup for Abraham Toro, but their bullpen is not exactly the best either. And then looking over here at the lineup. Now, according to Ev, Abraham Toro is not projected to be in the lineup tonight for the Red Sox. So we'll see. This is not official. We won't know until later in the day. I'm still going to rock with the player prop. If it doesn't happen to play, I'll just get voided like the Real Muto prop yesterday. But unfortunately, we don't have any numbers over on the dashboard because it's projected he's not going to play tonight. Hopefully, Ev was incorrect on that one. But if he isn't, we'll obviously have this plus 150. If he is correct, then he gets voided, and it is what it is. All right, guys, in our fifth and final player prop in today's video, we have Astros Athletics. 10:05 p.m. first pitch. We got Jose Altuve of the Astros over 1.5 total bases. We're grabbing it for minus 110 on FanDuel or DraftKings, whatever you prefer. It's available on ESPN Bet for minus 105 as well. It's available on multiple sports books for varying odds. Actually, I always forget, ESPN Bet actually is available in my state. So we will rock with ESPN Bet at minus 105. That's my rule typically. I only take the sports book that's available to me. ESPN Bet is available in Connecticut, so I'll take that at minus 105 odds. A little bit better value here. But again, kind of the trend for all these player props, the overall data, or the data hasn't been like a home run, pun intended, across the board here. We've either had good recent data or good overall data, but not all together. It's been a little bit of a weird slate in terms of that. All that being said, I still think these are really good player props, including this Altuve one. 6 of his last 10 games, he's cashed the over, averaging 2.3 total bases per game over the last 10 games. Last 20 game data, 50% hit rate, averaging 2.2 total bases per game. Again, not great, not terrible. And then overall this year, a 46% hit rate on the over. 32 out of 69 games, he's cashed the over, averaging 1.7 total bases per game this year. So again, like I said, not fantastic data here from an overall standpoint, but the recent data is fine. And from a head-to-head perspective, 8 of his last 15 matchups with the A's, he's cashed the over. It's a 53% hit rate, averaging 2.27 total bases per game across the last 15 matchups versus the A's. Now, he played him 3 times so far this year. He's cashed the over in 2 of those 3 games, including a massive performance back on May 27th, less than a month ago. He had 10 total bases and what was an 11-1 win against the A's. And then last night, he had 4 total bases and was a 3-1 loss for the Astros. I think I said that wrong. The Astros won 11-1, not the A's, sorry. And then the Astros lost last night 3-1. But anyways, looking down the key matchup stats down below, it's kind of where the picture gets more painted in terms of the matchups here. Jose Altuve versus J.P. Sears, the pitcher of the Athletics. 24 plate appearances since 2018, so we have a pretty good sample size to go off of here. He's batting .409 off of J.P. Sears, so a lot of great head-to-head success against the A's and against this in particular pitcher. OBP .458, slugging is a whopping .818. He's got 9 hits off of him, 18 total bases, 5 extra base hits, so a very good track record here versus J.P. Sears. And then looking at Altuve here, 274 batting average. All the numbers are pretty solid across the board. Versus left-handed pitchers, you do see some steady increases in all those numbers. 286 batting average, 300 BA BIP, 250 ISO, 37.5 extra base hit percentage. All really good numbers across the board here for Jose Altuve when facing off left-handed pitchers like J.P. Sears. Now, much smaller sample size, only 30 plate appearances, so take it with a grain of salt. But in the limited experience he has this year with versus lefties, he's been pretty successful. And then looking at J.P. Sears this year versus right-handed batters, again, all increases across the board. 5.54 ERA, 2.69 batting average, 4.94 slugging, and 45.6% extra base hit percentage. All increases from his overall numbers. Then down below, Jose Altuve versus J.P. Sears pitch arsenal. Sears heavily relies on the slider and the fastball, 41.3% sliders and 38.9% fastballs. He's batting .324 WOBA overall this year, and versus each of his top 3, actually, even including the changeup of 15.4, they're all increases from his overall numbers. The slider .340, fastball .361, and the changeup .383. So he's actually having better success against all those pitchers than his overall numbers. So across the board, it's a really solid matchup. That's kind of been the case for all these player props. The matchup in terms of the individual player versus team matchup is solid. The data on all of these haven't been fantastic from a trend standpoint. But I do think overall this is a really solid player prop, and for minus 105, phenomenal value. All right, guys, that is it for me today. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. One more time, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. We'll be back tomorrow with another MLB Player Prop video. Until then, guys, I hope you're all winners. Enjoy your Tuesday. Let's go ahead and make some money.